Productions.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Dawson. Welcome to Can You Relate, Cleveland's relationship show. You know, life is all about relationships. Everywhere you turn, you're in one. This show is here to help you make your relationships the best they can be. Stay tuned because later in the show we have a relationship roundup segment and we're going to be tossing out the question, if your best friend's husband were having an affair, would you tell your best friend? But first, we've got somebody on our couch who knows all about happiness. So let's get started. Do you practice your happiness muscle? Do you give it a workout? It may sound strange, but we've got someone here who really believes that's something we need to be doing. Jim Smith, welcome back to the show. You are the executive happiness coach, and you really do believe that we need to practice happiness. So explain a little bit again what that's about. All
right. Well, just like you have to work any muscle in your body in order for it to be stronger, you have to do the same thing with your emotional muscles. Okay. And we're all doing that all the time. You know, there's certain parts of our body that are stronger because we use them more, and there's certain emotions we carry that are stronger because we use them more. Right. Okay, and you know, sometimes it's our anxiety muscle or our anger muscle, and what I bring to people is an awareness about being able to work the positive emotion muscles in such a way that they become stronger and they show up more often. And now, are you saying we need to be happy all the time, or is it okay to be down and that is, you know, in the United States we have this whole thing about pursuing happiness. Well, the reality is that if you always live in happiness, there can be a downside to that. Because if you're always content with everything, well, what about ambition? You know, what about moving ahead? What about learning? And you have to have the opposite to understand, you know, there has to be... Well, I've actually written essays on the concept of, you know, you can't have happiness without sadness. Thank you. Right? That makes complete sense. I mean, anger protects us, fear keeps us out of harm's way, sadness keeps us in touch with something we've lost. Right. And happiness allows us to enjoy when things are going well. So what are some things that you can do, action steps, to actually become more happy, to exercise that muscle? Right, right. Well, since this is a show about relationships, right? You know, I invite you to consider that there's two relationships you have to nurture. All right. There's the relationship with yourself. And then your relationship with other people. And isn't the one with yourself the most important one? The one with yourself is the most important, Kathy. I got an A. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. If you've ever heard of the concept of take your own oxygen first. Did that ever happen to you where the oxygen mask drops down? Exactly. That happened to you? Yes. Yes, it did. Well, that's another show. Okay. That was another show. So you take care of yourself first. But now, in a relationship, what are some of the things you can do to be happy within the relationship? So let's talk about what you can practice, right? What many people practice in relationships are things like noticing every single fault and pointing it out, or practicing jealousy. You know, every time their partner is with someone else. And so the wrong things become functional, right? Whereas if you remember that love is an emotion and a verb. So you do it. It's not something intellectual. Right. The same thing is true of happiness. Happiness is an emotion and it is a verb. You can become happier. So what you might practice are things like writing down and expressing to your partner the things you appreciate about them. In other words, kind of a gratitude journal, only what am I grateful for about you? I'm all about this, okay? Right. Dick can tell you, I've written on Post-its, I've put in lipstick on the mirror, all right? I've had little votives on the floor that spell out I love you. So, I mean, all that kind of stuff is... This is why you're the relationship coach. Okay, so what's the next thing? We got notes. You have something about touch, hugs, or? Well, when my wife was ill a couple of years ago, and one of the things that I did incessantly with her was I held her in long hugs, okay, because she just really needed it. And one of the things that came out of that is she redefined what hugs mean. My wife's definition of a hug is that the HUG stands for human understanding given.
Oh, I love that.
And I'm sure you'll steal it now, right?
Of course.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. No.
So the way to engage with someone is to face them directly, heart to heart. Okay. When you hug someone, you're putting your hearts against each other. Right.
It's
very
not
primal. Right.
No pets.
Right.
Right.
So even when you are facing somebody in conversation, so a practice you can engage in is at least once a day have a conversation where you are directly facing each other so that your hearts are open, and it creates a different emotional space versus when you're watching the TV and clicking the clicker.
Right.
That's not a good conversation.
Now, do you know we're going to have you back again because we didn't get through the whole list. If you're liking what you're hearing, these are real practical ways to love someone, create happiness in your relationship. People can get a hold of you by contacting you at your website, which is theexecutivehappinesscoach.com. Thank you so much, and you will be back. All right, stay tuned. We've got Relationship Roundup coming up next.
You look wonderful. Nice job. That was great advice. Accepting a compliment is an important thing to do in any relationship. So, what's your comment when you get a compliment? Do you say, "Thank you, but," then give the person a reason why his or her compliment isn't true? Take the focus off yourself by immediately complimenting the person who just complimented you. Say nothing at all and look acutely uncomfortable. There is a nice way to respond when someone says something nice. Listen to Coach Kathy's complimentary advice.
If you answered yes to A, B, or C, you may need help in accepting a compliment. You know, in our culture, many times we have a hard time simply saying just thank you or thank you, I really appreciate that. But when you do that, you're really giving a gift back to the person who's sending you the compliment. If you don't do that, there's a high chance that you may not get any more compliments. So remember, simply thank you or thank you, I appreciate that. Now, if you know someone who would like to take this survey, they can do so by going to info@canyourelatetv.com. Stay tuned because we have Relationship Roundup coming up next.
Up next, if you knew, would you tell? That's the question. What will be their answers? Stay tuned for our Relationship Roundup. And later in the show, Tax Day is a month away. We'll help you formulate a plan for filing.
Everybody wins when you decide to donate your ride to Our Lady of the Wayside.
Our Lady of the Wayside is so much more than a car donation program. For over 40 years, we've helped thousands of physically and mentally challenged citizens live more comfortable lives within our network of homes. Our services range from assisting with personal care to developing productive personal growth. With your generous support and help, we can reach out to so many more. Y'all can help. Visit wayside.org or stop in to see us today. You can change lives.
We have another round of Relationship Roundup, and here is the question. If you knew your best friend's husband were having an affair, would you tell her about it? You know, there's a newly released movie out called The Dilemma, and this deals with this topic, so let's take a look.
Are poisonous!
Awesome. My best friend's wife with another man.
You gotta go right up to him and you gotta say it to him.
Nick, here's the truth.
You're gonna be okay.
I love you, my man. Come here.
Why is that man hugging himself?
Just keep walking. Tiny dancer. Let's go.
So what will our Roundup women say? I want to introduce you to them. Welcome back. Patrice Blakemore from Blakemore Coaching. You have 3 children, married 8 years. Barbara Rose, 2 adult, beautiful children. You hate it when I say this, married 39 years. And Rochelle, married 6 years with 3 children.
Yes.
So this is the big question. If you knew your best friend's husband were having an affair, would you tell your best friend? Just chime right in.
That's a loaded question because you know you're going to lose your best friend.
Right. Will you?
Absolutely.
Well, wait a minute.
I don't think so. I would definitely tell because for me it would be a health issue. I would want to save her life.
Why is it how?
Because if he's cheating, you're not going to expect that he's just necessarily going to use protection. And if they're, I'm having, you know, in a monogamous relationship, I would let her know so she can make those kind of precautions.
So you're thinking about the physical ramifications.
Absolutely.
I think you need to be pretty sure that you know for sure that he's having an affair before you say anything to the person that, the female person that you love so much that you don't want to hurt.
Because can you imagine if you said that and it wasn't true?
Could be a sister
What a nightmare.
from out of town. You don't know.
Well, I think if you know for certain that it's not a platonic relationship, I think you should definitely tell.
Like
Even
in the movie, like
absolutely.
when you catch him in the bushes or whatever.
You know, I think that you have. I think you could lose your relationship, because what's going to happen a lot of times, she'll confront him, he'll say either I did or I didn't, she'll forgive him, he's mad at you, you all lose your relationship, and they're back together.
But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth, if you love that person enough, to say I'm willing to step out of their life for them to not be in the dark.
Even though it may backfire on you and
Even
it may
though.
end your relationship
Absolutely.
with them.
And I think if you do know and you're sure and you don't tell her, she could be hurt much later that you were hiding something, or why wouldn't you tell her? And I think it also depends on how you tell the person.
Absolutely.
You know?
Oh, okay.
Not to embarrass her or anything like that. And I think if you say it in a loving way, and and this is truly your best friend.
There is no way. There's nothing you can say that she's going to say, oh, thank you so much for telling me.
I would.
Okay, we have to stop because we got to take a break. There's so much to talk about here. We will be right back with more of Relationship Roundup on this topic.
Craig and Mark Lindell and Grange Insurance know that when you're out there doing what you do, the last thing you want to worry about is sketchy claims coverage from a cut-rate insurance company. When you go with Lindell Insurance and Grange, you're working with companies that use big, bold brushstrokes when it comes to claims and make an art of working out even the smallest details to make everything perfect. Contact Lindell Insurance or visit their website.
Welcome back to Relationship Roundup. We're continuing a conversation we are having about if you knew your best friend's husband were having an affair, would you tell your best friend? So, Barbara, you brought up something about how you deliver that message.
I think you might sit down with her and say, look, I love you and I don't want to hurt you, but I saw Dick with so-and-so and...
Kathy said, don't use me.
Don't use my husband as an example. Okay.
I wasn't talking about Dick Dawson. I was talking about somebody else.
Another Dick.
Another Dick, right.
I think also confronting the husband and saying, I think even giving him the opportunity to say,
I'm with that.
You need to tell your wife, if you don't,
I will.
I like that.
Right.
Well, isn't that what the guy did in The Dilemma? He went to her first and said, look, I'm giving you, and she's going, you didn't see the movie.
No.
I have not
he
seen
went
it.
to her first and she said, well, I'll just deny it. Okay.
Yep. And that can backfire.
And that can backfire.
Absolutely.
That
Right.
can
And
backfire.
then you're the bad
So
guy.
you are taking a risk. We're back to square one, where you may lose. You may be the one who loses.
I mean,
your
and
friend.
maybe she knows. Maybe she's just in denial. I know plenty of people, that's how they live their life.
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
And they just don't want to know. So they'll tell and they'll say, oh, thank you very much, but it's not true.
Yeah, I mean, the signs are there.
Yeah.
But you're like, oh no, this, you know.
And, But you know, I think that if that's the case, if this is your best friend and they're living in denial, I would kind of reassess my friendship, because do I really want that type of person in my life?
Oh, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, we'll have to
Jeez.
do that on another roundup.
Wow. Well, now let's switch it. What if your husband were having an affair and somebody came to you? How would you feel? Would you
They need to let me know.
You need to let me know. I'm like, I need to know.
Shocked. I would be so shocked. I wouldn't believe a word they were saying.
So in medicine,
And
you wouldn't
I
believe
don't
it
live,
anyway.
I don't live in denial. I mean, maybe I do. 39 years, I'm in denial. I just would be shocked and would say, okay, I'll go talk to him.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And that's
Absolutely.
right. And that would be, if someone told me that, I was like, no, you must be a
But
look-alike.
would you be happy that they told you that, or would you
I wouldn't be
rather not
happy
want to-
about anything.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be happy.
But be glad that they told you.
But also, you need to also understand that someone may be telling you that to try to destroy your relationship. So
Exactly.
I think it is about knowing who you are married to and having that trust. And if that
but
person,
it's your best friend.
Wait, that's not the
If it's your best friend.
What is her motive?
What is her motive?
If it's not your best friend, if it's, I mean,
well, I think we kind of
okay. Well, let's assume it's your best friend, and her motive is because, like you
her
said,
motive
Barbara,
is she loves you and she wants to care for you and she wants you to herself.
Then I think you should beat her. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I think it would go back to having a conversation with your husband, and maybe it's something innocent, or maybe it is one of those things that he comes out, or you find that there's something going on that you can begin to work on. Right. But I think I would be appreciative, but I would again take it back to my husband.
Okay, now I know I'm really digging around here, but if so, your husband says, "No, I'm not doing anything." Do you hire a detective? I mean, what you've got this little piece of information
living across the street. And I know she needs work.
Say that again, what?
I have a detective, a private eye, who lives across the street.
Aren't you lucky?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my personality is such as, like I said, Inspector Gadget. That's when I would be on the hound. But, Facebook, everything else. But, at the same time, you need to know your relationship. Right. And if there's some level of distrust there, then you have to look within yourself. If you get to that point where you have to dig around, then you may have to start looking at other options.
Right.
And
get some help.
If somebody says that to you, something's not right in your marriage.
Mm-hmm. Right.
No matter how much denial you could be in.
Right.
And for me, I know that our marriage is pretty good, and if there were problems, eventually it would come out.
What if there were? It doesn't mean that somebody's cheating if there are problems. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's true. We could sit here for another half an hour talking about it. But thank you so much for each and every one of your perspectives. Now, if you'd like to continue this conversation, and I have a feeling you might, you can get a hold of us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you'd like to come on the couch and have fun talking about a question, you can email us at info@canyourelatetv.com. Stay tuned for the romance review coming up. Saying I love you is always a wonderful thing to do. Sometimes, though, you just have to step out of your comfort zone and give that message in a different way than usual. One of the best ways to say I love you is to say it with lipstick. Here is a true story of a woman who did just that. We'll call her Susan. Susan took one of my relationship workshops, and the homework for everyone in class was to go home and do something different to say I love you to their mate. Now, Susan was very shy and pretty conservative. She decided to take a risk and step out of her comfort zone. While her husband was sleeping that night, she got out of bed and wrote, "You Tarzan, me Jane, let's swing tonight," across the bathroom mirror in red lipstick. The next morning, she heard her husband go into the bathroom, she heard him shaving, she heard him take a shower, and she heard him leave the house. She knew he had to have seen her big red lipstick message on the mirror. You son of a gun, she thought. Well, that day around 11:30, he called her at home. "So, listen," he said, "that thing you wrote on the mirror, did you mean that?" "Yes," said Susan, "I meant that." And for the first time in their 16 years of marriage, Susan's husband came home for lunch. If you know what I mean. Lipstick. You might want to try it.
Hi, Murray Plasko from Fashion Floors, here to remind you that Fashion Floors has a wide selection of carpet and the newest and hottest in hardwood flooring. Plus, we have the very latest in green products like bamboo and cork. Think big, save big, get 12 months same as cash. Call or come see us today.
Join in as Al's Deli celebrates its 5th anniversary. Nestled in downtown Cleveland's 55 Erie View Plaza building, Al's Deli serves breakfast, lunches, delicious Middle Eastern dishes, and has catering too. Al's Deli, a hidden treasure for your tummy. Log on for money-saving coupons today.
Tax day is 1 month away, and are you tense? Do you need to relax about it? We've got Ken Butsey here to help you calm down. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
You have a really good piece of info. Oh, by the way, you need to get pen and paper for this. We've got 5 basic points that you're going to go over, and it's all good stuff. You have a good piece of information to tell everybody that tax day this year is not April 15th.
It's not April 15th. It's April 18th because there's a federal holiday on the 15th.
What is it?
Emancipation Day.
Okay, on my calendar I checked. It's the beginning of Passover on my calendar. Okay, it's not that, but that's good to know.
Yeah, it's Emancipation Day. So when this happens, it's about every 7 years. It gets pushed back to the next business day, which happens to be the 18th, which is the Monday, I believe.
Okay, so how does that affect us? We
It
just have
doesn't
3
really
more
much.
days
You have that weekend to be miserable.
All right, great, great. So what do we need to know about 2010 and preparing our taxes?
Well, a couple of things. One is that if you have not yet made contributions to your retirement plans for 2010, since you haven't filed yet, it still isn't too late. You can still go ahead and do that. So that's one
till
thing.
April 15th?
Up till the day you file, but not beyond April 18th.
Oh, right. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
And then what else? Don't we have some other things going on with the state taxes? Like you don't have to pay them?
Yeah, December 17th, the President signed a law which continued a lot, they call it the Bush tax cuts, but continued a lot of those things. But some of the major things that are coming down the pipe, which I am really encouraging people to think about now, are the tax increases that are set into law, particularly for higher income people.
Okay.
There's some significant tax increases coming, which I think this is a huge year, 2011, to plan for them. Because
Excuse me, what year are they coming?
the biggest ones are coming in 2013.
Okay.
And here's where I think the planning opportunity comes. One of the things that's going to happen is there's going to be some surtaxes imposed on people at the top level, okay? And some of you may say, well, I'm not nowhere near that, but I think what's going to end up happening is it's not going to take much to get some people there, because many people, when they start to take money out now, are taking it out of retirement accounts. So just for instance, one day you decide you're going to take out $50,000 because you're doing an addition onto the home. If you misplan this, there's a chance that that money that you take out could boost your overall income over these thresholds and subject you to these extra taxes. So my point for 2011, 2012 is really start to think about where you're going to be getting money from in the future, and maybe take some proactive steps this year while you're able. Maybe it makes sense for some people to start putting more money into a Roth or converting money to a Roth, because those dollars will never be taxed.
Or take it out and go on a vacation.
Or take it out and take us out of vacation. Right.
Right. Then you have some other thing about the MAGI. What?
Well, MAGI is modified adjusted gross income, and that's I know you don't like those
hard
things.
to say.
But MAGI is basically, and that's where I was at. I had already spoken to that. Basically, there are things that are going to be excluded from putting you accessible to that tax, and things that are included. So even though money that you take out of your retirement account won't be taxed necessarily at that additional surtax, they call it a surtax, I call it a success tax. You're being taxed because you've been successful.
Okay.
Even though those won't necessarily be, they're going to be included in all of your income that will be.
I see.
So that's what MAGI is.
And then there's one other thing about money in a trust.
Yes. This is the biggest one. And a lot of people, a lot more people have begun to name trust as the beneficiary of their retirement plans for whatever reasons. Normally, I don't recommend it, but it's very individualized. So on a program like this, it's hard to say you shouldn't do it in a blanket statement. But normally I don't recommend it. But the trust, the threshold on the trust is $12,000 now. So that surtax is going to come, the success tax is going to affect anybody who benefits a trust, and the trust has more than $12,000.
I see. Okay.
It's a trap you might want to.
This is, I mean, it's coming up fast, so we really need to take these points to heart, because it make a whole difference in your lifestyle if you don't get the right information. Thank you so much.
See, the way it's coming up fast for me is my daughter starts driving that year, so it's coming up real fast.
Really fast. As always, thank you for being on the show. If you want to get a hold of Ken to get this really good information, you can call him at 216-751-4229 or go on to his website at integrityfirstplanners.com. Stay tuned, we have Get a Life coming up.
Coming up, Kathy decodes cues and clues when determining if a possible mate wants a date. And next week, their marriage was in trouble. How did they fix it? Find out next week on Can You Relate with Kathy
This is our Get a Life segment where I talk about all the different kinds of things to do in Cleveland to get you up and off the couch. This week we're talking about another museum, the Kent State University Fashion Museum. This was actually started in 1983 by two women from New York who were dress manufacturers, and they collected and donated 4,000 dresses and accessories to put and start in this museum. There are actually 9 galleries in the museum of historic and contemporary fashions that date all the way back to the 18th century. They have many exhibits. Right now they have an exhibit called the Katharine Hepburn exhibit that highlights all of her fashions from stage and screen. So to learn more about this museum, you can visit their website at www.kent.edu/museum or call 330-672-3450. Don't go away. We'll be right back with Ask Coach Kathy.
For those who struggle with drug and alcohol addiction, finding the courage to change is the first step to lasting recovery. Discover life in recovery. Discover Glen Bay.
Glen Bay, nationally recognized drug and alcohol treatment for adults. Discover more at glenbay.com.
This is the Ask Coach Kathy segment. This is where you get the chance to write in a question and I answer it anonymously. So this is this week's question. Kathy, I'm a 32-year-old single man who hasn't dated much at all. When I get in a room filled with women, I break out into a sweat. I'll see a woman I think I'd like to approach, but then can't seem to figure out if she's interested in me. I freeze up and do nothing because I don't want to feel rejected. How do I know which women are open to being approached? 93% of communication is nonverbal, so you've got to be watching the nonverbal cues. When you make eye contact with a woman, if she looks away, that's not a good sign. If you hold it for 2 seconds, you don't want to hold it too much because it's creepy, but you just want to hold it for a couple of seconds. If she tilts her head and smiles, it's a green light, all right? So then you go over, you got to leave about 1.5 feet between you and the person, and if she leans in a little bit, that's a good sign. If she touches your arm, oh, this is great. Now you got another green light. The most important thing is just to be yourself. So stay tuned because I'm going to be back to talk about what we have coming up in next week's show. Oh, and if you want to have your question answered, you can email us at info@canyourelatetv.com. We'll be right back.
Would you like Coach Kathy's help in making your relationship the best it can be? You can get in touch with Kathy by calling 216-932-5016 or visit Kathy at kathythecoach.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. Next week, you're going to want to come back because we have a new segment we're starting called Relationship 911. This is where we have a couple in who's had some struggles and want to share their successes. So I will see you next week on Can You Relate? Have a great week.
Can You Relate with Kathy Dawson is presented by CK Media Productions.